Now, you may be wondering why I'm wearing an elf costume, but that's not important right now because holy shit, that finale was fantastic. So let's get into episode 8 of Twisted Wonderland by first talking about how I mentioned this before, but they really stepped up the game with the animation when it matters. When you have some action sequences where you need at least a little bit more complexity with the movement of the characters, with the actions, throwing objects, the creativity with angles. All of this is present within the finale, and I do think that they really saved their heaviest punches for the end of the series, which I appreciate. I'd rather have the quality come at the end, at the season finale, as opposed to burning through all of your budget at the very start of episode 1. Not saying episode 1 was bad, but you can definitely see where they highlighted all that goodness that we get. And oh my goodness, like I said before, I showed up for the characters and I show up for the world, especially because I know it's based off the books and the game, and those are hugely successful. I know nothing about it. I try not to spoil myself, especially with future episodes and seasons that they're going to delve into with the anime. I kind of want to stay blind and be an anime only here. But what I do know is that they are successful enough to get an anime adaptation greenlit on Disney Plus. You know what I mean? And also, I've been seeing it on Facebook and Instagram and social media where they're actually kind of pushing it a little bit and saying, hey, check out our original anime that we're releasing. So as someone who wants more diversity with his content, especially when it comes to Disney and then branching out into the anime sector, this is very much a good call. And I've mentioned this with previous reviews, but I have been tested time and time again with shows where the show may not be of the highest quality or the highest caliber when it comes to animation, but when you stick around and you stay and you wait for some pretty hype moments, right? You stay because you hope that you're gonna have one amazing moment to make it all worth it. And I'm telling you right now, when Yukin, Ace, Deuce, KK, and Trey all lined up, oh, and Grim too, when they lined up and they went full frontal assault, just straight up charging in, just straight at Riddle with the music from the opening playing in the back, it's a hype moment. And that's one of my favorite. I don't care if it's a trope or just a common, okay. A lot of people may call this as oh, you're just, key jangling, you're doing something to make it seem like it was better than it was. But I actually think that them playing the music of an opening when it comes to shows like this to hype up a moment just goes to show hey, we're rewarding you for sticking around this entire time. The song that you've been hearing, we're putting it into action with this epic scene. And just seeing them all come together Avengers style, charging in against Riddle and the blot monster that was basically I think one of the coolest aspects of the show is the designs of these creatures, right? The blot monsters, and them teaming up and using combos, having callbacks to their fight in episode 3 against the what was it? The dwarf monster blot creature, mage creature, right? That was in the mine that we still don't know anything about, right? Looking back, you get callbacks to that. You get callbacks to hints about Riddle's past, but we now get a full circle moment of Riddle's just a tragic character. And you kind of saw this coming, but Riddle really had it rough because, his mother was very strict with his upbringing, making sure he didn't have any treats. He had to stick to his studies, learn magic, and it worked to a certain extent. He learned his special spell, his ultimate ability, which was off with your heads with the lock at age 10, which mages still don't learn until later. So they already hint that look, it is an insane curriculum, and he does gain success from being focused on his studies. But the problem is it messes you up in the head. And I think it's so funny because it's the Asian mentality where it's overachieving success, right? Or no, being an overachiever to reach success, right? By any means necessary, and you'll get there. Like you'll see, and it's so common where it's like you'll see the mastery of music, the arts, studies, and it's all these people, not even just like Asians, but like just in general, where overachievers will reach this high status from just this strict upbringing from their parents, and they will absolutely lose it because it's the mental toll that ends up breaking them. Even though they reach success, at what point does it really matter? And if you've seen a movie called Whiplash, I think that's like a perfect example of that, where it's just like if you reach a certain level of success, you also will reach that breaking point where that success won't mean anything because you lost your sanity to get to that point. And we saw that with Riddle. I mean, he overblotted. Like he lost it. He was going to die. And it was because of his mom and his upbringing. And it's I really feel for him because had things been different, if he was raised like I'm not saying to have no discipline, to not have great work ethic, but there needs to be a balance. Like every once in a while, go out, hang out with friends, eat a tart. The fact that Riddle's mom was screaming at Trey's parents for letting him eat a tart because, kids want to hang out, and instead of thanking, his parents for like inviting Riddle over to their cafe and eating for free, she just explodes at them. Like that just goes to show like kind of where we're at here in the story. You know what I mean? This is where we are. But like I do like we got to see full circle moment for Riddle. We get to see him at the very end after that epic fight. And I've said this before, Yukin is not an active character. What he does is he's very much not a protagonist, but a central character, along with Ace, along with Deuce. It's just, and Grimm, right? That's the trio, and Grimm, of course. It's sort of their journey in this world, and they're also freshmen too. They're also learning what's going on, and that's what's like really fun about watching Twisted Wonderland is you're not getting stuck in, oh, we need to watch where this character goes per se, but instead the show is focused on let's explore this world with this character, but this character is also not going to be a plank of wood. He's not a self-insert. That's not what Yukin is. Yukin is just a very passive character who will have his moments, and we do see that in the finale with him, striking and fighting against these heart-shaped arrows that are made from blot, which is cool. Like I love that. Like the powers in this world are just so cool to look at. Like, Riddle summons a blot creature. He has a full-on transformation into overblotted Riddle. You have him firing arrows, like ripping out rose bushes and throwing them at, Yukin and gang and co. So like you have these cool powers, and then you have like, okay, we're gonna team up with our abilities to fight back. And honestly, I think Trey's ability is actually coming in clutch here. Like the amount of times that like a flying projectile is about to hit him, and Trey the goat just goes and like, changes them into like a deck of cards, right? Like that's such an overpowered ability to overwrite characteristics. But like it's something unique, and I like that. I appreciate that, and I like how, in a certain sense, every single one of their powers is card theme, or the Queen of Hearts theme. Like anything that would fit within the world of Alice in Wonderland is present here. And I like that. I enjoy that immensely. All the way down to like, Riddle's eventual like coming to terms with who he was and how he acted, and realizing that even though he's a rule abider, he follows the rules to a T. He enforces the rules to a T. Sometimes it's okay to think, and I think Trey has a great line here at the end where he goes and says like, hey, sometimes what if we start approaching things of what if we do it this way today? Like that doesn't mean, and he's right about this, like balance, right? That doesn't necessarily mean go off the chain and like go full anarchy mode. There should be no rules, there should be no order. there should be order. But what Trey was saying is like every now and then you should also like loosen up, you know, take it easy. Sometimes you don't have to follow the rules, but we can also follow some rules that are more important than others, like tradition or something of like a ceremony that respects sort of the past of Hearts Labu. I'm gonna say this right. I keep saying the Queen of Hearts house, but Hearts Labule. Hearts Labule. There we go. Hearts Labule. But like just seeing the progression for Hearts Labule and seeing that, you know, there is a way forward for Riddle that doesn't necessarily need him to crash out over. And one of my favorite parts too is at the very end, we also see in the celebration of him saying, "Oh no, we didn't paint the roses red," right? And instead of blowing up, blaming anyone, it's just a simple walking over, using his magic to paint the roses red and resuming. And I think that's pretty awesome, you know, going in and just saying like, you know, things happened. We're here. We're at this point because I was too strict. Instead of blowing up and making everyone hate tradition and hate following the rules and hating myself, most importantly, we can get to a point where it's like we can still follow the rules. It doesn't need to be this big deal. Just making sure, like, just small changes here and there, but making sure that, like, one, we follow tradition and the most important traditions, but also making sure everyone wants to feel like they belong in the house, right? And I like how everyone started to come back and realize that Riddle had a change of heart, and now everyone likes hanging out with Riddle and being a part of the house. And I thought that was a really, really great narrative, like, full circle moment for the season. Yeah, I like to yap a lot, especially about Riddle, because I think Riddle honestly is one of the best parts of season 1, because Riddle is like such a strong impression from episode 1, where you already get what type of character he is based on him getting upset at Yukin for ruining the entrance ceremony, right? And then we get to the point now where, full circle moment, he's now happy and a lot more relaxed. And you can tell on his face that he's much more happy where he is right now after he's woken up to the idea that not everything needs to be like his mother intended. He can choose a life for himself that guarantees his happiness. And I think that's a really good message. It's a really good theme because, at least for me, as someone who watches this, and I watch a lot of anime, like a lot of anime. And I love picking apart themes. And this, I think, is a very important theme because a lot of people, I feel, struggle with this. It's finding balance and realizing that, you know, even though you may be told a certain way all your life, from whether it's parents, guardians, teachers, friends, you don't necessarily have to abide by them. At least, maybe not all the time. And especially not if it hurts you. And I think that my rule of thumb, especially as someone who has been through rough patches within my life, especially when it comes to the relationship with others, I always say this. And I always try and push this, especially on this channel, especially to viewers or subscribers or on stream. I've talked about this, but there is a very important distinction between being happy and feeling happy. And one thing is very different from another, because you can say that you are happy, you are having a good time. But if you take a step back and reflect and have an inner monologue with yourself and think back to everything that's happened, are you really happy? And you cannot lie to yourself because it's a feeling. You either will feel like you are happy or you aren't happy. And that's why we get all these issues sometimes where people manipulate you, people gaslight you, people make you think that you are happy or are in a good place mentally, when actually, in reality, you are not. You are not happy. And it just takes a second to break out of this trance that you find yourself in. And I'm not saying this to diss anyone in particular. This is more of advice as someone who has had to go through this myself, where I had to take a step back and say, am I really happy with where I am in life? Am I really happy with my own actions, especially when it pertains to my relationships with others? Like, I've been at points where I've been like Riddle, where I've kind of crashed out, where I kind of made an enemy out of everyone because I felt like I needed to follow the rules. I needed to be right. I need to listen to my parents. And it is good to listen to your parents, but sometimes your parents do not know the full situation. They don't know what's best for you sometimes. Sometimes you have to make that judgment call. And that being said, Riddle's is like an extreme example, right? Riddle is like, whoa. The mom is like, you gotta stay in the house. You gotta study. No eating tarts. You gotta eat this like gross food. You know what I mean? But like, that I think is the theme of, at least of this one, is it's all about the rules and tradition. And it's okay to follow tradition. It's okay to follow the rules. But sometimes there's a point where you have to be realistic. Sometimes you can try and follow the rules the best, but sometimes some rules take priority over others. Like, maybe it's okay to break the rules and say, hey, let's, drink some tea with honey instead of just with black coffee with sugar, right? Sometimes it's okay to eat a chestnut tart at a tea party instead of your normal strawberry tart. There's a variety of, and I think this is like one beautiful thing I think about this season in particular is the point. I think Yukin and Trey and Ace, surprisingly Ace, like Deuce did a lot I think in the middle, but Ace at the end, oh my goodness, he did such a great job of just being straight to the point, very honest about his feelings about the whole situation with Riddle. But I appreciate how he's like, just be aware of what you're doing and be honest with those around you. Especially, like, look at it this way. I want others to be honest with me the same way I'm honest with them, where we can keep each other in check. And I like Ace because his thing was he's keeping Riddle in check, like saying, hey, you're going too far. This is ridiculous. What are you doing, dude? And I just like sort of like this full moment of Riddle realizing Ace is right. Everyone's right. And even Riddle apologized, and even Ace ribbed him because, that he's like, oh, you think a little sorry is going to excuse me? You're still going to have to pay me back. And I like the moment of him forcing Riddle to make a tart. And that tart was gross because he put, what was it? Oyster sauce in it, oyster oil or whatever. But that was a good moment. That was a good moment because it shows like, look, people make mistakes. It happens all the time. But if you act earnestly, you act honestly, and you make those appropriate changes to not only be a better person to others, but more importantly, to yourself, because you're doing yourself a disservice if you make enemies. You're doing a disservice to yourself if you're not living life in a way that makes you happy. Because you may be, I want to make others happy. I want to do everything to make the people I care about happy. But if you get to a point where you're not happy as a result, you're going to regret that. You're going to regret not having good moments in life. And that's why I think is what was so great is Riddle overplotted because of this weird mentality of my mother's always right. I have to be right. I have to do things right because otherwise others will be hurt by my actions. And you saw that a little bit with his friends, with like, Trey and Chenya. You saw it with Trey's parents being yelled at and how ashamed Riddle was. And I'm glad that we got that moment where Riddle now feels comfortable to be himself, to be a little bit more relaxed because his mother's not there. And as much as, Riddle's parents are extreme, we can also apply this to friendships and just people in general, where if people make you feel uncomfortable, if people make you feel sad, they will eventually move away because if you keep putting yourself out there, if you keep talking to people and being yourself, you're going to find a good group of people that actually care about you. And you will start to learn, like me, because this has happened to me. I'm speaking from experience where I found a great group of friends, and all the people that were poison to me, that made me not happy and not feel comfortable throughout a good portion of my life, slowly faded away because I didn't hang out with them anymore. And I barely think about them in the same way that I used to, where it made me feel awful. I can think it back as a bad memory, but I feel so much happier because I'm out of that woodwork. And yeah, so it was a great episode. I love also, I mentioned this in episode 2 or episode 3, end of episode 3, when Yukin gets his camera and it's like a little hidden Mickey for the lenses and the sides, which is a really cool, like, hey, we're Disney. This is a Disney anime. It's really cool, right? Because we can use Disney properties and Disney characters without being sued, right? That's the cool part. But I kind of like how, you know, he takes photos at the end, and we still don't know if there's magic properties to this camera because they mentioned there's maybe some magic behind it. But I like, at least right now, we're using it as a normal camera to capture, like, hey, this is a good wrap up for the season. We're taking photos of Trey and Riddle laughing, you know, Ace and Deuce and KK and Grim, you know, everyone just having a great time. And I thought that was like a good, like, overall moment. So overall thoughts about the season. I think Twisted Wonderland, if you, for some reason you're watching this season finale review, I'm assuming you have seen it, but if you haven't and you're debating on whether to get into this world of Twisted Wonderland, I'm only speaking to the anime here. I recommend it. I think this was a great show. There may be low points with the animation quality, but what I will say is if you stick it through, I think the finale is fantastic. I love the music, I love the characters, and I love the world, and I love learning more about what's going on within Night Raven College. I love learning about them mentioning that, you know, we're gonna have these tournament, like these games being like there's a specific, I think it's gonna be like a Quidditch type game where it's like a fantasy style game where it doesn't exist in reality, but it exists within this world, and they're probably gonna use magic to compete, right? Or abilities. And especially because we're gonna bring in the next house, which is the Scar and his faction, right? That'll be very interesting, and that's like a good lead-in to the next season, especially because they already confirmed it's coming out. So I'm excited to learn more and more. And I like how it doesn't seem like there's gonna be a formula where it's gonna be like, oh, the same problems in season 1 are going to be very different in season 2, because I think the way the dynamics of the houses are structured very differently from each other, because this one is very much about the rules. I think since the next one's about athleticism, it's going to be something about that, something about strength and abilities. So that'll be fun to look at. Because it's gonna be a different vibe overall. But yeah, so I would recommend it. I've had a great time with this season. And the fact that I made 8 episodes, and I do appreciate sort of all the support on these videos. That's why I've been trying my best to make them better and better each time. We will be doing a season 2 review when it comes out. And I may have more Twisted Wonderland videos in the future. Maybe I'll do like a breakdown of, I don't know, like maybe the music or the characters, or maybe just talking about like I talked about Riddle a lot, but maybe I'll talk about Deuce or Ace a little bit or something like that. Or maybe theories. Maybe I'll do a theories video, but I've been enjoying this ride, and I can't wait for season 2. So I want to thank everyone for watching. This has been a great ride for me too, especially as someone who just started Twisted Wonderland videos on a dime, and it seemed like you guys really like it. So that really means a lot to me, as someone who doesn't know much about this world, and seeing you guys being so encouraging and inviting into this fandom, it makes me feel very happy. And yeah, I don't know, I'm still talking right now. I just like yapping, but that's just me. I like yapping. But if you want to see more videos, we'll be putting a pause on Twisted Wonderland videos. I'll make a couple, but it won't be weekly releases because I kind of want to keep up the quality of the videos. Maybe I'll do like a trailer breakdown when season 2 comes out. I know they put a teaser, especially for season 2, but you know, since the season ends if they do another trailer closer, I'll maybe do a breakdown of that, and then we'll get into season 2. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on my next Twisted Wonderlands video, or next video. We'll see what I do next. That's gonna be fun, figuring out what to do.